Hey guys, what's cracking? It is Kraken Nation, coach of the Boston Bisharps. I apologize. As per usual, I did not do a good job recording this season. It just kind of gets hard. It was a very stressful semester, just as far as academics go, and that kind of has to come first over putting the time into recording. But that said, something I wanted to promise myself was if I made playoffs. Conveniently enough, playoffs is right after the semester ends this season, so I really wanted to make sure that I got some kind of videos out there. So we did manage to make the playoffs. It was a close. We came in as the number 4 seed. What's unfortunate is that we had 2 hacks losses, straight up just hacks losses this season. That would have put us at 10-2 and put us at the number 1 seed. The playoffs race was very tight. And we could have easily been like the number 1 or 2 seed, I felt like. But regardless, it was we managed to get there, and that was the end goal. So we went 8-4 this season, and our first round opponent was actually one of the legit losses that we had throughout the season in Moxie. Moxie played very well in our first match, and the game ended up coming, I was definitely in that game, I was up early, and then the game, and he ended up bringing it back, and the game became a series of 50-50s late. Which was really well done by him, and I lost. But I wanted to make sure that he felt the pain of playing Kraken Nation in playoffs. So I prepped really hard for this particular battle. Just regardless of the result, I wanted to make sure that I went and put forth. It's the last season of the CSL season next. You got to put forward that best effort. I am going to be doing a post-com for all of the playoff games that I do or do not make, as far as how far I get, but. So we're gonna kind of get into this, how this battle went down, how it shook out, what the sets were. So I'm actually on the other side. I'll switch that once the battle starts. But I was Choice Scarf Primate with an Atom Nature, which is super weird to bring, I realize, against the team with Cresselia. But actually, what was I really early on in the team building process, if Cresselia is coming, it's gonna be Calm Mind, because that puts in a lot of work against my team. If it's Calm Mind Cresselia, I lose if I don't have a way to beat it. So I have Trick Chandelure, which shuts it down pretty hard. But the really bigger thing there is I have a because the thing is, Calm Mind Cresselia runs into 4 move slot syndrome. It needs to run sub to avoid those slow toxics. But it also needs to run recovery. But it also needs to run Calm Mind. But it also needs to run psychic, right? Or at least attacks. So it basically has to run something, but I am running Heart Swap on Magirna to steal those boosts away, which I was able to play around having that in the back. So yeah, so we're going to start this game off, and we're going to switch sides. So he leads with, He leads with Nidoking, and I lead with Primate. Primate was the lead of choice just because I knew I was pretty much going to U-turn on turn 1. I pretty much recognized Nidoking has to be the rocker here, so the most likely leads are either Nidoking or Weavile, and I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing against both of them. This Primate does have Earthquake, so I was like, I can't click Earthquake on a Nidoking. Unfortunately, Earthquake won't kill, but I knew I would kill Weavile. I am Defiant, so if he for some reason went into Arcanine there, I would actually get a boost. But I clicked U-turn there because Earthquake didn't kill. And I felt pretty confident looking at my team. He knows he can click Sludge Wave and kill this. If he goes to click Sludge Wave and I go into something that can take a bit, like a Chandelure, for example, or a Slowbro might be able to take that. Basically, I was trying to play around what he would click here. I ended up deciding he was going to click Earth Power because my likely leads into it's kind of this meta analysis where you got to realize, from his perspective, what are the safe switches? Normally in the last game, I switched in Slowbro Mega into Nidoking, and that ended up playing out pretty badly. So he might have been playing around me making that same switch. In which case, I was not going to go into Slowbro or Swellow. In which case, I would go into Garchomp or something, the T-Bolts. But in that case, I was like, well, he's going to kind of realize that I probably learned from that. I'm going to go into what would be a better switch, and in this case, that was Swellow. So I kind of read the Earth Power, and he does actually click the Earth Power as I go into Swellow, and I just proceed to Swellow, just put the Keem on its back at this point in the game, and I just fire off Facades. Facade does I get the attack drop, but I still do 60% to this Arcanine. He proceeds to switch out into a Altaria, which also takes 45%. At this point in the game, I'm like, okay, so he has to roost here. You 100% have to roost here. If not, Altaria is dead. Like, this thing is done. This is a max defensive Altaria, which is pretty key to note. That was something I definitely made sure I prepped for. But Gunk Shot from Primeape, which we do have, does not kill this thing in is not a guaranteed to a KO. So I need to be very wary of that. So at this point, I knew he's like, okay, what's he going to do? He's obviously going to switch out. I was going to roost. So I knew I could go into slow row and just kind of like, as long as he roosted, I knew what was going on. At this point, I was like, okay, so this dude is probably going to click the Toxic here, right? But I actually played around the Toxic and went into Swellow because I was like, okay, he's probably going to Toxic here to Toxic Swellow. I was going to go straight or Toxic Slow Row because I saw he was defensive. That was my guess. He ended up not clicking it. But what's nice thing about Swellow is if he didn't click Toxic there, he was going to switch out, right? And Swellow just puts immense pressure on if he switches out into anything else. So Swellow was a really nice middle ground play there, where if I can just explain that again to you guys, all the Slowbro switch-ins on this team lose to Swellow, right? Like this, like Nidoking loses, or things that beat Slowbro lose to Swellow. So this loses to Swellow. This doesn't necessarily beat Slowbro, so it wasn't safe. This loses to Swellow. Altaria loses to Slick. Everything that like could handle like Slowbro loses to Swellow. And Weavile, for example, beats Swellow but loses to Slowbro. So having Slowbro in, I was confident that Weavile was not going to was coming out next. So I was pretty sure he was either going to roost or switch into something that got beat by Swellow. Sorry, he was going to roost, and then after that he's going to either Toxic to beat the Slowbro in front of him, or switch out to something that beats Slowbro. And everything that beats Slowbro, like I just explained, loses to Swellow. So you feel pretty safe here going into Swellow. And unfortunately for my opponent, I do get a crit with the Facade here, which is, not ideal. And I do apologize for that. I don't know if it ended up mattering in the end game a ton. That did I think 70 or 80% normally, but I did feel kind of bad. There's never a roll that could have killed a Licky, even from min HP or something. So definitely felt pretty bad there. I did have the thing is about this team is like the real only way that affected the game in the end, I think, is that I could click Shadow Ball on Chandelure for free on my Scarf Chandelure, and I felt bad about that for sure. I don't think it affected the game just because I ended up not only needing Shadow Ball on Chandelure like one time, I think. But I guess the fact that I had that in the back made him have to play a different way. So I don't think it mattered a ton this early in the game. But the problem is that this early in the game, it's always really hard to tell. I'm just explaining my rationale by saying that like Shadow Ball was not going to be the play that many times where Licky being healthy mattered. So he goes into Altaria, and at this point I'm like, I'm just going to keep facading. Swellow's brutalized Licky. This Arcanine's at 39%, and this thing just came in. I'm just going to click this fat facade. It's going to do like another 60% of this thing. And he does kill Swellow with that, but I am totally fine with that. And see, this is the one situation where I could have gone into Primeape to kill this and left myself in a weird situation. But in this case, Chandelure was like a lot safer because, again, Primeape's Gunk Shot did kill here, as did a Flash Cannon from Magearna. But those are both situations that I was more than happy to be able to avoid with Chandelure. So, yeah, that's why I say it didn't matter because I did have other things to just beat this. But, yeah, I don't want to discredit my opponent. So I click the Shadow Ball here, knowing he has no switch. He goes into Weavile. So I was like trying to play around this Weavile. I realized pretty quickly if he's got Pursuit, he's gonna click Pursuit no matter what, and it's gonna kill me pretty much no matter what. So I just gotta switch out and hope he doesn't have it. The thing about this Weavile in this game is it has to have Z Dig. If it doesn't have Z Dig, it can't beat Magearna, right? Magearna sets up and just destroys Weavile. This thing is actually useless 100% of the time. If I bring a Magearna, he doesn't have Z-Dig. So he's got to have Z-Dig. And then he has to have Ice Shard to beat Garchomp's Speedy, Ice Speed Scarf Chomps. He's got to run Ice Shard and Z-Dig. No, too, if you're not running Knockoff on this thing, you're insane, right? Like, you're going to run Knockoff on Weavile. So last move was really the question. That could have either been Pursuit or Icicle Crash. I just felt more comfortable thinking it was Icicle Crash just because that did more damage to a lot of things on my team. Secured kills on stuff that it outspeeds a lot better than maybe Knockoff might have. But regardless, I didn't have the luxury of making a play around Pursuit, obviously, because I locked into Shadow Ball that does like 40% to Weavile. I think like 35 actually is the roll. So I just switched out knowing that this probably didn't have Pursuit, and I could probably make that play. And like Shadow Ball, Chandelure again. I was in a situation where like yeah, Licky died, but clicking Shadow Ball wasn't that important to me, which is why I felt comfortable like saying that the crit didn't matter. Like Shadow Ball didn't end up being that important to my game plan. But I do go into Slowbro on the Z dig that he reveals. I guess the guess that I had was that he was expecting me, and after the game talked, he was expecting me to get a Colbur Berry on Chandelure, and I guess the fact that I had the Scarf wasn't revealed because he was a bulky Altaria. But regardless, I think this is a pretty huge misplay on my opponent's part because he just wasted the Z dig. Like I said, he needed to have it, and now Magearna has just a 100% win con against this team if with like Arcanine weakened and Weavile no longer having Z dig, like Magearna doesn't really lose anymore. I guess Cresselia could have been a problem still, but so I feel pretty comfortable here. I actually clicked the Scald here just because I do the math and Mega Slowbro doesn't even get 2-hit KO'd by knockoff right now, so I know he's gonna have to switch out. Knows I'm gonna have to switch out. I just am able to just click this Scald, get a kill on something. He's gonna go into Crest here or Nidoking here to threaten the T-Bolt. At this point, I'm like, yeah, he's gonna threaten the T-Bolt, but he also Earth Power is also gonna do a pretty good chunk. And he might expect me to switch out. So I go into Garchomp. I think that was a good play that he Earth Power was the middle ground play. It was risky by him a little bit, but I do switch Garchomp into the Earth Power, knowing that this Nidoking isn't going to be clicking Ice Beam in that situation. And if it does click Ice Beam, I go into Chandelure and Fire Blast, like just gets a kill on this as well, as does Primeape, to be honest. And again, he doesn't know this at this point, but I do have Heart Swap and Magearna. So Primeape getting locked into moves that Cresselia sets up on is actually great for me, and it just means that I get to utilize. He's basically just setting up for me to sweep him, which is a great situation for me. So any situation where I bring in Primeape and like allow him to set up is not bad. So at face value, it allows me to have the luxury of making these like maybe slightly more riskier. I would call them middle ground plays with more risk than reward at times, and I can just pretty much play around knowing that like. Magearna's at the back, lets me put the pressure on. So I go into this, and I know Earthquake is just going to get a kill if he doesn't go into Cresselia. Obviously, I just click the Earthquake. I have nothing to lose. I am actually Dark Z Garchomp. At this point, I know he has Might of Ice Beam. I'm very conscious of that, but I also don't have like a luxury of switching out a ton. I also don't think if he's just not running Ice. Again, this is the thing about Cresselia. I'm positive this Cresselia is running Calm Mind at this point. Cresselia has to run Calm Mind in this matchup. But if he's running Calm Mind, and then he has to run some way to avoid Toxic, he probably has to run Recovery. He probably has to run Psyshock or Psychic or some more at least an attack. It's like the move slot syndrome sets in really hard on Cresselia in this game. So I feel comfortable that like Psyshock doesn't kill me right now. He's running Psyshock over Psychic because I have a Blissey. Psyshock doesn't kill me right now, so I can definitely just SD up. And he actually goes for the Calm Mind here, probably thinking that Garchomp can't touch this. Because to be fair, no Z Dark like Garchomp wouldn't touch this, but I do touch this Cresselia, and I touch it very hard. And Cresselia goes down in one hit, guaranteed OHKO. Never even stood a chance. He goes into Sneasel here. I decided Garchomp 100% is worth saving because Nidoking is not going to be taking that Earthquake. I can just put the pressure on with something. So I go back into Slowbro again. If you remember what I said earlier, it takes these knockoffs. Knockoff does not 2-hit KO, and I actually just slack off here. Scald could have been a much better move here. That would have allowed Primeape to win earlier and actually secured the differential. But again, differential doesn't matter in these games. At this point, I know like my opponent actually has no chance to win. Primeape wins 100% of the time. He kills Slowbro with Thunderbolt. That was actually a roll. It was a pretty mid-round roll, so I was going to say that one. Earthquake, I can just go off here. He goes into Weavile, kills me with an Ice move. Kills me with a knockoff. And now, basically, Primeape can come in and just click Earthquake. I actually did not know, but Nidoking ends up being a little bit bulkier than I expected and takes this Earthquake pretty well. So I am like, oh, crap, okay, well, I still don't care because I still have a Scarf Chandelure and Shookaberry Magearna in the back. This Nidoking was never getting through the rest of this team. So, yeah, like, I guess if I missed the Fire Blast and he crit an Earthquake, or crit an Earth Power, I still think a crit Earth Power did kill me. So yeah, that was the game. I think this was one of the games where I felt like I was in control from turn one with Swellow. The Swellow, like, I U-turned out with Primate into Swellow. As well, the second I made that like Earth Power play and just started rattling off those facades, I think Swellow takes the cake for the MVP of this match. Even though it was the first one to die and only got 1 kill, it actually just pounded this team into the ground early and just put my opponent on a back foot so early in the game. And in these playoffs, especially these offensive type playoff matches, playing on a back foot for the rest of the game will lose you games unless you've got some kind of crazy comeback mechanic. And that's kind of why I had the heart swap Magirna, right? Is that's a crazy comeback mechanic in emergency situations. Yeah, so I think something's to be said in this game. I think the things that mattered the most, obviously Swellow. I think that play where I went into Swellow, kind of from a psychological standpoint, this is kind of a playoff thing that a lot of players don't realize, but there's a lot of value to just like rattling the shit out of your opponent on turn 1 or turn 2, just like making these like kind of ballsy plays on the early games, or the unexpectedly non-ballsy plays, just making out of expectation plays, I guess, for the situation, or your playstyle or something early or even the mid game at times. The psychological edge you can get from just rattling your opponent, and like for example with my Swellow, on the Earth Power switch, can really set a tone for a match. And if you can catch your opponent off guard, they're like for example they'll make a lot of weird plays where like he just kept switching around trying to figure out, oh my god, how am I going to deal with this Swellow right now? And he just kept switching around and kept taking damage. And Swellow just proceeded to batter this team. And by the point where that happened, like I knew like Garchomp's going to put in work. Magirna could technically win the game. Slowbro walls everything that's left. Like these kind of things start to come together when you kind of like have your opponent on the back foot for the rest of the match. Anyways, Moxie did play a really good game, and he had me beat down. He had really played a really great game early this season, so I will give him credit. I prepped incredibly hard to make sure that I was going to be able to pull this win out. So got to give my boy Moxie a lot of props for just a really, really great season. He earned the #1 seed, and he did absolutely earn it. Just had an incredible draft, played it pretty well, and I think this was one of those games where I managed to squeeze one out. So we're going on to quarterfinals, where we will be playing the surprise semifinalist, Bobbert. Hi, my name is Bobbert, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Bobbert was the 3 seed, I believe, and he actually, in a very close match, we beat him early in the season. Unfortunately, I have a terrible matchup against them. I also have a terrible matchup against Moxie, to be honest. So we're gonna see how it goes. I'm pretty excited that I've at least gotten through Moxie. I think he was the tougher opponent of the two, but I definitely also think there's a tough matchup ahead. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Kraken Nation out.